Picture a phone that rings at 2 a.m. A stranded driver on the shoulder of a dark highway. You show up, hook the car, haul it away, and collect $250 in cash for 40 minutes of work. Do that a few times a night and the money seems almost too easy. That's the pitch. One truck, a hook, a phone number, and a city full of broken down cars that will always need you. Recession-proof. No storefront, no inventory that spoils. Just steel, a winch, and demand that never turns off. That's the version you see in the reels. The guy filming himself loading a wrecked Corvette, captioning it 400 fees for 20 minutes, parked in front of a house that towing supposedly bought. It looks like the last honest hustle left in America. Here's what those clips leave out. That same operator was awake at 5 a.m. the day before, sitting in a repair bay while a mechanic told him his transmission was done. He's owed money by 3 insurance companies who pay on their own schedule, not his. He's fighting a customer who's disputing a charge with the state. And after a genuinely strong month, a busy one, he might clear somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 before taxes. Some months he clears nothing at all. That's the real business. And figuring out why the reality looks so different from the highlight reel is worth every minute of this video, especially if you're thinking about buying a truck yourself. Let's start with the number everyone Googles first. What does a tow truck actually cost? There's a real answer. A used flatbed rollback, the kind you see hauling sedans and SUVs, runs anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 depending on age, mileage, and the condition of the bed and winch. That sounds reachable. Cheaper than plenty of new pickups. But here's the first trap. A cheap tow truck is cheap for a reason. The hydraulic system is tired. The winch cable is frayed. The bed slides slow because the pump is on its way out. The wheel lift assembly, the arm that cradles the tires, has play in it that a DOT inspector will flag the moment you go for your commercial registration. You'll discover this after you've handed over the money, not before. And then you'll spend another $5,000 to $15,000 rebuilding hydraulics and replacing safety components on a truck you bought specifically to save cash. A new rollback is a different world. You're looking at $95,000 to $160,000, depending on the chassis and the bed manufacturer. For that, you get a truck that passes inspection on day 1, a warranty on the hydraulics, and a lender willing to finance it over 5 to 7 years at somewhere between 6 and 12%, depending on your credit and how long you've been in business. And if you want to tow the big stuff, semis, buses, loaded box trucks, a heavy-duty wrecker starts around $300,000 and climbs from there. Most people don't start there. Most people start with one medium-duty truck and grow into the heavy work. The serious operators usually land in the middle. They buy a used truck with a solid engine and drivetrain, then rebuild the towing equipment they'll actually rely on. That path tends to settle around $50,000 to $90,000 once everything's accounted for. And everything is more than you'd guess. The wheel lift and winch rebuild alone can run $3,000 to $8,000. Lighting matters more than people think. The amber bar, the strobes, the work lights, because a truck working the shoulder at night that isn't lit correctly is both a ticket and a death sentence, and a proper setup runs $1,500 to $4,000. Then the tools: dollies, J-hooks, chains, straps, a full set of Go-Jack-style skates, a heavy-duty floor jack. Another $2,000 to $5,000. The wrap and lettering with your DOT number, another $1,500 to $3,500. And the dispatch and GPS system that tells you where your truck is and routes your calls, $500 to $1,500, upfront plus a monthly fee. Add it all together, a realistic all-in number to put one properly equipped, road-legal tow truck on the street in a real American market sits between $60,000 and $110,000. That's before you've answered a single call. And before that phone ever rings, you're going to meet the government, several branches of it. Towing is one of the most heavily regulated small businesses in the country, and it varies wildly from state to state. You need a business entity, a commercial vehicle registration, and in most states a specific tow operator or wrecker license on top of your regular business license. Your truck needs a USDOT number, and if you cross state lines, an MC authority as well. Your drivers, including you, need a commercial driver's license class depending on the weight of the truck, and many states require a separate tow endorsement or certification course. Then there are municipal permits, and this is where it gets strange. because towing is regulated at the city and county level in ways that most businesses never encounter. Take New York City as an example. The city licenses tow companies directly, charging a license fee per truck, plus a renewal, plus a mandatory inspection fee on every vehicle. Miss a renewal and you're operating illegally overnight. Many other cities and counties do their own version, capping how many tow companies can hold a permit, requiring published rate schedules, and mandating that your storage yard meet zoning and fencing requirements before you can impound a single car. Realistically, first-year licensing, permitting, and compliance for a new tow operator runs somewhere between $2,000 and $10,000, depending on the state and city, and in the strictest markets it climbs higher. But the fees aren't even the worst part. The worst part is time. The weeks waiting on your DOT number. The re-inspection because a light was out. The back and forth with the county over whether your storage lot's fence is tall enough. And none of it is one and done. Every license renews. Every truck re-inspects. Your DOT authority requires ongoing safety compliance and drug and alcohol testing enrollment for every driver. Budget somewhere between $300 and $800 a month. Ongoing, just to stay legal and stay authorized. That's before fuel. Before a single tow. Now here's the piece almost nobody thinks about until it's a problem. Where do the cars go? If all you ever do is haul a broken down car to a repair shop the customer chose, you don't need much. But the real money in this business, the reason people get into it, involves impounds, illegal parking, accident recovery, police-ordered tows, repossessions. And the moment you're holding someone else's vehicle, you need somewhere to put it. A licensed, secured, fenced, often camera-monitored storage lot that meets your city's impound requirements. That lot is not free. If you rent, you're looking at $1,000 to $4,000 a month, depending on the city and the size, and in dense markets, far more. If you buy the land, you've just added a real estate problem to your trucking problem. And a storage yard has its own rules. Access hours when owners can retrieve vehicles, signage requirements, liability for every car sitting on your gravel. If a hailstorm dents 40 impounded cars overnight, guess who the claims come to? So if you thought a tow truck meant freedom from real estate, the storage lot is the thing that quietly ends that fantasy. Now let's talk about where the money actually comes from, because this is where most people's mental model falls apart. There isn't one tow truck business. There are essentially four, and they pay completely differently. The first is private consumer towing. A driver breaks down, calls you directly or through a roadside app, and you haul them to a shop or their house. This is the friendliest work. Cash or card on the spot, a customer who's grateful you showed up. But it's also the most competitive and the hardest to fill a whole day with, because breakdowns don't schedule themselves. The second is motor club work, contracts with the big roadside assistance companies and insurers. They send you a steady stream of calls, which sounds perfect until you see the pay. These companies negotiate hard, often paying a flat rate per tow that can be as low as $40 to $75 for a hookup and a short haul. Well below what you'd charge a walk-up customer, and they pay you weeks later. High volume, thin margin, slow money. The third is repossessions. Working for lenders to recover vehicles from people who've stopped paying. It pays better per job, but it's stressful, occasionally dangerous, requires specialized cameras and equipment, and in many states requires its own separate licensing. And the fourth is the big one, police rotation and municipal contracts. This is the holy grail most new operators are chasing, and it deserves its own honest explanation. Most cities and highway patrols keep a rotation list. When there's an accident, an abandoned vehicle, or a car that has to come off a public road, dispatch calls the next company on the list. Get on that list and you get a stream of impound work, and impounds are where towing quietly makes real money, because the fee isn't just the hookup, it's daily storage. Every day that car sits on your lot, the meter runs, often $20 to $75 a day depending on the market. A single police-ordered impound where the owner takes 2 weeks to claim the vehicle can generate several $100s in storage alone on top of the tow. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Getting on the rotation list is hard, competitive, and political. Cities cap how many companies they'll rotate. You often need years in business, a fully compliant storage yard, 24-hour availability, and sometimes you're required to accept the city's mandated rate schedule, which may be lower than what you'd charge privately, and the police department frequently does not pay you at all. You collect from the vehicle owner or the insurer, which means you're now a bill collector, chasing people who are already angry that their car got towed. Some of those cars are never claimed at all, and now you're stuck with the cost and paperwork of a lien sale to legally dispose of an abandoned vehicle. This is the pattern of the whole business. Every revenue stream that looks like easy money has a string attached that you don't see from the outside. Here's a mistake that costs new operators money every single day without them noticing. They think of themselves as always working. But a tow truck doesn't earn money by existing. It earns money only when it is actively hooked to a car that someone will pay for. Every other minute, driving empty to the next call, waiting for dispatch, sitting in traffic, idling on the shoulder, is a minute the truck is burning fuel and depreciating while earning nothing. This is called deadhead miles, the empty driving between paying jobs, and it is the silent killer of tow truck profit. If you drive 20 miles to reach a stranded car and then tow it 8 miles, you were paid for 8 miles of work and you drove 28. The fuel, the wear, the time, all of it counts against a single fare. The operators who make money are obsessive about density. They work a tight geographic zone, they cluster their contracts, and they say no to the 50-mile call that pays the same as the 5-mile one. A tow truck spread thin across a whole county loses money on the driving in between. Now let's break down what actually happens when a customer pays you for a tow, because this is the number that matters more than any other. Say it's a standard local tow and you charge $150. A hookup fee plus a per-mile rate, which is typical for a private call in most markets. That's your ticket, but you don't keep $150. Start with fuel. A medium-duty tow truck gets somewhere between 8 and 12 miles per gallon, worse when it's loaded and worse when it idles, which it does constantly. Between reaching the call and completing the tow, you might burn $10 to $20 in diesel on that single job. Now you're around $135. Then there's the cut. If that call came through a motor club or a roadside app, they take their share off the top, and on some platforms that's a substantial slice. If it came through a lead service, same story. Even on a direct call, card processing takes roughly 3% plus a transaction fee. Call it $110 to $130 left depending on where the customer came from. Now labor. If you're driving yourself, that time still has a cost, because it's time you can't spend on another call. If you have an employed driver, the real cost isn't just their hourly wage. A tow driver earning $18 to $22 an hour costs you closer to $25 to $28 an hour once you add payroll taxes, workers' comp, which is expensive in towing because it's genuinely dangerous work, and the drug testing and insurance compliance that comes with a commercial driver. Allocate the portion of that hour to the single job, and you're pulling another $15 to $25 off the ticket. What's left, realistically, from that $150 tow is somewhere around $70 to $95 in contribution margin. That's the money that has to cover every fixed cost you have before you take a dollar home. And the fixed costs in this business are brutal, driven by one line item above all others: insurance. A restaurant carries insurance. A tow truck carries insurance, the way a hospital carries insurance. You are operating a heavy vehicle, often at high speed, often on the shoulder of a highway in the dark, often hauling someone else's expensive property. The industry data here is stark. Commercial auto insurance for tow trucks averages somewhere around $700 to $900 a month per truck, and full coverage programs that include general liability, garage keepers coverage for the cars in your care, and on-hook coverage for vehicles you're actively towing, commonly run $450 to $700 a month and often more. In total, insuring a single tow truck properly can run $8,000 to $12,000 a year, and for a new operator with no history, higher still. One at-fault accident and your rate can jump enough to end your business. Garage keepers and on-hook coverage aren't optional luxuries either. If a car you're towing catches fire, or a vehicle on your storage lot gets stolen, that's your liability, and without the right coverage, it comes straight out of your pocket. Then there's maintenance, and towing eats trucks. Your vehicle is heavy, worked hard, loaded and unloaded all day, often driven by someone in a hurry. Brakes, tires, hydraulics, the winch, the wheel lift, all of it wears fast. Budget $500 to $1,200 a month for routine maintenance, and understand that's the calm number. When the transmission goes, or the hydraulic pump fails, or you need a new set of commercial tires, You're looking at $3,000 to $8,000 in a single week, and while that truck is in the shop, it earns nothing while every fixed cost keeps arriving. Add it up. The truck payment on financed equipment, $1,000 to $1,800 a month. Insurance, $1,000 to $1,600 a month. Storage lot rent, $1,000 to $4,000. Maintenance, fuel, dispatch software, DOT compliance, licensing. Before you've paid yourself a single dollar, the fixed monthly overhead of keeping one tow truck legal and operational runs somewhere between $5,000 and $9,000 a month, every month, whether the phone rings or not. If this breakdown is opening your eyes, do me a favor and hit subscribe and drop a like. It genuinely helps more people find honest videos like this one instead of the highlight reel stuff. Here's why the operational discipline matters so much. The revenue in this business is wildly unpredictable, but the costs are relentlessly steady. A slow week doesn't lower your insurance bill. A snowstorm might bring you 30 calls in a night, and then 2 weeks of dead silence. Your income arrives in unpredictable spikes. Your bills arrive on a calendar. That asymmetry is the entire challenge of the business. And unlike a lot of businesses, weather doesn't hurt you, it's your product. Ice storms, floods, blizzards, heat waves that blow tires, these are your busy seasons. Some of the best tow operators make a huge chunk of their annual income during a handful of brutal weather events. But that also means your income is lumpy and impossible to schedule. You can't force a mild winter to produce accidents. The operators who survive treat the good months as reserve-building months, not spending months, because they know a stretch of perfect weather is coming, and perfect weather means nobody needs a tow. Let me put real numbers on what this looks like when it goes well and when it goes wrong. The optimistic scenario. You bought a solid used rollback and rebuilt it well for $70,000 all in. You financed $55,000 at 8% over 5 years, roughly $1,115 a month. You've been in business long enough to land a motor club contract, a repo lender, and a decent flow of direct calls, and you work the truck yourself. In a strong month, you run 120 to 150 tows and clear $22,000 in gross revenue. Fuel runs $2,500. Insurance, $1,400. Storage lot, $1,500. Maintenance set aside, $900. Compliance, dispatch, and card fees, another $1,200. Your truck payment, $1,115. Total costs, roughly $8,600. Net before your own taxes, around $13,000. Annualize a run of months like that, and it looks incredible. But you won't get 12 of them. You'll get several strong months, several average ones, and a couple that barely break even, which brings a realistic annual take-home closer to $45,000 to $75,000 for one hard-working owner-operator. Now the realistic scenario. It's a mild, dry stretch. The phone is quiet. You do 60 tows this month instead of 130. Your gross drops to $10,000, but your insurance still bills. Your storage rent still bills. Your truck payment still bills. Then your hydraulic pump fails and the repair is $3,600, and your truck sits idle for 4 days during the busiest possible window. You end that month down a few $100s with the repair still sitting on a card. The swing between that month and the good one is enormous, and you don't get to choose which month you're living in. That gap is the tow truck business. You control your costs, your reliability, your response time, and your reputation. And then the weather, the accidents, and the motor club's payment schedules decide the rest. So here's the honest answer to whether it's worth it. Some tow operators build real wealth. The ones who do share traits that have almost nothing to do with how fast their truck is. They lock down recurring contracts, motor clubs, repo lenders, and ideally, a municipal or police rotation spot before they need the revenue, not after. They obsess over deadhead miles and work a tight zone. They keep insurance claims off their record because they know one bad wreck can double their premiums overnight. They treat maintenance as a scheduled cost, not an emergency. They hold a cash reserve deep enough to survive the quiet stretches and the surprise repair in the same month. And they're honest with themselves about the life, the 2 a.m. calls, the standing on a freezing shoulder while cars scream past at 70, the danger that makes this one of the deadliest jobs in the country by injury rate. The ones who fail bought too much truck on too much debt, chased 50-mile calls that lost money, skipped the maintenance, and ran out of cash during the first mild month before the storms came back. A tow truck is not a passive asset, and it's not the effortless cash machine the reels promise. It's a physically demanding, dangerous, capital-heavy business compressed into a few tons of steel and hydraulics, where the money is real, but the margins are thin, and the hours are brutal. The operators who understand that going in are the ones who last long enough to make it pay. If you found this useful, like the video and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every video on this channel takes the same approach. Real numbers, real mechanics, no highlight reel nonsense. Thanks for watching.